Salutations. My name is Chen Williams. I am an international relations student and I am your host. As an innovative young African, I'm sure you told yourself that one day you'll grow up and create an industry that invents instead of extracting and retailing. You thought since no one else will do it, not even your government, you will manufacture and assemble vehicles for your country, invent and innovate for the next generation after yours, and leave behind a legacy for your nation. Well, as you get older, you understand how the West and other foreign powers have been smart enough to use trade agreements and diplomatic relations to their advantage and superiority. Certain clauses and help with strings attached perpetuate a system that prevents Africa from industrializing. Instead, the continent is conditioned to remain as a cheap source of raw materials and as a favorable market for all kinds of foreign-made products. Let me explain the trade game, how trade agreements and diplomatic relations shape African economies.
We don't produce television.
But why?
Because this government has gone into trade agreements with other countries. Let's take Germany, for instance. Our trade agreements with Germany says we cannot manufacture a car. We will assemble the cars from Germany. And we don't just assemble, we put money to assemble German cars. Why should we do that? Why should we not manufacture our own car? Where is the market? Africa loves everything South African. They will buy from us. We produce a fighter jet. A fighter jet. If we can produce a flying machine, shouldn't be difficult to produce a car. Denel has demonstrated that we've got the capacity to do this. Denel manufactures army vehicles.
Indeed, why can't we produce our own cars, our own infrastructures, our own vehicles? Well, it's because there are certain trade agreements that African countries get into with their Western counterparts. And those agreements affect your desire or your ability to want to create a company that manufactures cars. You actually can't because it's a trade agreement that your country made with the West. Likewise with South Africa, they have the capacity to build vehicles for military. They can also build a fighter jet, but they cannot produce vehicles for the general public at a commercial scale. Why? Because the Europeans want to sell you their already manufactured vehicles. It's all about trade. Africa has been the market for the longest.
Pipes of Nigeria are passing through villages where poverty is worst. British Petroleum. And Nigeria has to import back its own fuel as a processed product at a price 3 to 4, 5 times more than they send it out of the country. So tell me, Nigeria, after 60 years of mining oil, why up to date you don't have a processing and a refinery?
Exactly. Same thing with Nigeria. It's not just South Africa. Even Zimbabwe, if you look at Mozambique, if you think about Zambia, a lot of these trade agreements affect our economy and our development. Nigeria, there's the Shell company. It's being sued. There are a lot of protests against it because they're robbing Nigeria of its oil and they're the ones making the profit. Meanwhile, the Nigerians will fight over the pipelines, vandalize the pipelines because they want to sell the oil. It's their oil. It's understandable, but still it causes conflict. Western interference in Western business brings conflict in Africa, apparently. There's some corrections that need to be done there because we can't always stay in conflict because some other countries want to develop. And when they develop, they call us third world countries, like, some condescending levels.
To purify your oil and sell petrol to the world. No, those mines don't belong to us. The government signed a document with the British government, and it's in the constitution, it's in the law, that Britain will mine this place for the next 99 years. I don't know how long is the lease. So you have the same law that you vote leaders into, and when they get into this law, the Western world always make sure the person going onto that chair understands the law which protects us.
Oh yeah, again, some agreements that our governments make with the Western multinational companies and countries is that these agreements are going to be put into the constitution. To such an extent, the company will be given Britain, was mentioned by Maponga there. Britain, it owns the mines, the oil mines, and there's a lease saying 99 years. So, knowing international relations and politics, most likely that lease has been upgraded. It had to be adjusted so that amended, if you will, so that they can continue on exploit the oil reserves. Because 99 years, as much as it might sound long, that time will pass. But still, in that time, a lot of exploitation is occurring. Then there's the issue of the US aid. Yes. So the US aid allegedly and quite rightly and justifiably has been accused of funding terrorism and of misusing these funds to manipulate policies in developing countries, particularly Africa. It's the same instance with Nigeria here. Nigeria, of course, the Boko Haram, they had so many advanced weapons. Why? It's because some of their funding came from the US aid. I'm not saying that the USA is bad, I'm just saying that it's not that perfect. Corruption exists everywhere. So take a listen to this young lad here.
So it has just been confirmed today in the US Congress that US aid has been directly funding terrorist organizations across the world, like Boko Haram in Nigeria. As in, the US government was directly sending tens of millions of dollars to destabilize the Nigerian state and lead to the death of tens of thousands of Nigerian people for at least a decade now. And from that story alone, we can then deduce that it's very obvious that America orchestrated the collapse of Nigeria. And let me just give you some background to this story, right? So we had from 2010 to 2014 a Nigerian government that was essentially ensuring Nigeria's economic growth. I'm not going to say that this government was amazing. They were not. They had corruption, there were problems, but at the end of the day, Nigeria's economy was growing massively. I'm saying like 8%, 10% economic growth year on year. Nigeria was actually on track to become $1 trillion economy by this year, by 2025. And beyond that, they were also on track to become a superpower nation. They were actively expanding their influence across the African continent and across the world. Nigeria was in an amazing position. But obviously, this goes against American interests. America cannot have a powerful African nation challenging their interest in the region. So what do? They funded Boko Haram. And from that's where the collapse of Nigeria started. Because Boko Haram was a massive problem. They were bombing Abuja. They claimed a territory the size of Belgium in Nigeria. They were destabilizing the country fully. It was a very bad position for this country to be in, and that is where Buhari comes in. Buhari was a former military dictator, and he petitioned to the people as somebody who would be tough on terrorism because, he was part of the military, Abi. So you can really see that America funding Boko Haram made this guy very popular. And then beyond that, America went as far as banning the sale of weapons to the Nigerian government. So the Nigerian government could not even fight against Boko Haram if they wanted to because they were denied access to any weaponry to fight against them. Why exactly would America ban the sale of weapons and fund a terrorist group at the same time if they're not trying to cause this government to collapse?
Exactly. Why would America do that? Well, national interests. America needs Nigeria to have conflict so that they can influence their control. It's pretty simple. It's business. Politics is business. The government runs on a business. Resources are businesses.
Are you a young individual looking to enroll at a university in August? Or members of the working class looking to update their academic arsenal and rank higher in their respective careers? Well, fortunate enough, there's an August 2025 intake at Africa University. The academic institution is home to beautiful acacia trees, incredible infrastructure, and hosts a plethora of fantastic people. As an international relations student, I can assure you of the institution's excellent lecturers and teaching methods, particularly those that lecture the IARA program. For more details, visit the African University website. Find their contact details on the homepage.
Mop up one area in the south was the start, and after that was done, mop up in the north. The division would follow behind, occupied terrain. We would train the division in situ in defensive positions, etc. But we were never allowed to execute the entire operation. So in 1 month, we took back terrain larger than Belgium from Boko Haram. We were not allowed to finish because it came at a time when governments were in the process of changing. I think President Jonathan's government possibly saw the entire Boko Haram contract, if we call it that, almost as a last gasp in order to regain popularity. The incoming president, President Buhari, was heavily supported by a foreign government, and one of the first missions was to terminate our contract.
Could you name that foreign government?
Yes, we were told it was the United States, and they had actually funded President Buhari's campaign. The campaign manager for President Buhari came from the US. And I'm not saying that the United States is bad. I understand foreign interests, but I would have thought that a threat such as Boko Haram on the integrity of the state of Nigeria ought to be actually a priority. It wasn't.
Well, kind of clearly, you are saying that. You're actually proving that it's bad. But I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's corrupt. It's corrupt. Clearly, the United States had to manipulate the government, create chaos, control the resources. It's pretty simple. It's quite an issue that our governments really need to now, well, kind of, they've been waking up in a sense, because there's the BRICS, there's the G20, and apparently America has been pulling out of its organizations like the World Health Organization, and it stopped its funding. You know, the USAID, that USAID was funding terrorism and also trafficking. Allegedly, the UN is very, very corrupt because they have impunity. Their diplomacy and the UN has impunity. So they can go around the world, commit a crime, and they'll get away with it.
Government's foreign interests clash with the state's own domestic interests, conflict is bound to ensue. And those conflicts usually just continue with no end. And we can look at all the conflicts in Africa where foreign forces have come in, they've prolonged those conflicts, they haven't ended those conflicts. And the amount of money and manpower and equipment thrown at those conflicts says to me that something is wrong if no end result is achieved. And surely that end result should be to end the conflict and establish a basis for negotiations, come to an agreement, and then re-establish governance. But that's not what's happening in Africa.
Yeah, again with that issue about foreign interests and national agendas. The USA actually valued its own foreign interests to the extent it decided to violate universal law of human rights. It violated international law itself because Boko Haram created a lot of chaos in Nigeria. A lot of girls were raped, a lot of people were killed, kidnapped, tortured. It's because the USA wanted resources. So for the USA to get those resources, the Nigerian people had to suffer. Likewise in the Congo, you know, a lot of countries are benefiting from the Congo suffering so that they can take control of the resources.
So now we accept that political stability in Africa is bad business for organizations like UNHCR and UNICEF, the better. These organizations were literally closing down their offices in Southern Africa. Boom, the people of DRC start dying. The same Congolese who exposed the UN for stealing minerals and hoarding it in their offices. The same UN that was exposed by the Congolese people for causing instability in some parts of Congo are now dying. When we are killing each other and dying, they are going around the world begging for billions of dollars because we are dying. It's good business for them. As long as there's people donating to organizations like UNICEF and UNHCR, we always die as Africans. When we stop fighting, they don't make money. What assurity do we have that if these organizations actually are not funding wars in Africa?
When we stop fighting, they stop making money. Some interesting words. And they really do echo because there's a lot of fighting going on in Africa. Rwanda, Uganda, DRC, Mozambique. And these are rich countries. Well, more or less. But yeah, these are rich countries, especially DRC. A lot of countries are involved in the DRC conflict and chaos. As much as we might say the M23, Rwanda, nah, it's just the media pushing Rwanda. Rwanda could be part of it. Yeah, Rwanda is probably involved, most likely. But there's more. There are more players involved. Clearly, there are more players involved. So yes, I mentioned this in my article written by yours truly, How Foreign Diplomacy is Affecting Democracy in Africa. My lecturer, Dr. Alexandra Rusero, is the one who actually gave us this task to make this video. Yes, he mentioned that democracy is a human aspiration. That really did ring to me. Everyone needs to sense a feeling of representation, respect, mutual social contract, access to resources, and freedom of expression. When citizens take to the streets to protest or challenge the current regime, it usually concerns matters of resources, employment, the nation's standards of living, and security. When the government chooses to prioritize Western or foreign interests, it is a clear violation of the country's constitution and democracy. Yeah, I mean, clearly, because you tell the public that they can do this, this is the nation's policies, these are the laws, and then yet you go and give special treatment to foreigners or to foreign interests. That's a slap in the face in itself, don't you think? The toxicity behind international partnerships. The European Union's Economic Partnership Agreements, EPAs, between the EU and African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries were said to be a stance in promoting trade and development. However, these agreements often favor European agricultural products and interests and undermine local farmers and industries. Economies have been riddled by increased poverty and social unrest due to the capacity hold on local economies' capability to compete with subsidized European products. South Africa's trade agreements with the EU has also been criticized for allowing European products to flood the market, making it difficult for local manufacturers to compete. Yeah, that's with you have military vehicles, but you do not have vehicles for the public, for the general public. I mean, if South Africa did make vehicles, we'd probably be importing their vehicles. Most likely, absolutely. This has led to reliance on imported vehicles rather than fostering a robust domestic manufacturing sector. Neocolonialism exists today due to the corrupt nature of treaties and diplomacy. History successfully maintained ties with the present when it concerns influence and control. The colonial era is not too different from contemporary Africa, except for its subtle approach and support from most African heads of state.
Hello guys, how are you? My name is Steven T.
On that note, vote for Steve for Social Welfare Secretary in the 2025 general elections. Your voice is advocacy.
We might want to blame the foreign entities. Our leaders are very much also to blame. They get into power and they follow suit. I don't know what it is. Is it blackmail? Is it cash? What exactly is it? Is it fear of sanctions? Not quite sure. But the best thing that you can do as a citizen or a human being, because you need resources and you need to understand that what's going on, what agreements is your government making with foreign entities, with other nations, so that you know where you are in the world and what you can do where you are. If you don't know, you pay tax, and I don't mean that as in like don't pay your taxes, but yeah, if you don't know, you pay tax. So study your laws, understand your policies. If you don't agree with the government policies, at least you can argue, you can debate, you can contest. But if you don't know, how are you going to contest? You're just going to suffer in silence. There's a Shona saying in our culture, "Mwana singa chema no fira mbeleko." If you don't cry, you die on your mom's back. Well, thank you for your time. I hope you learned something and enjoyed this video. Until next time, thank you for watching Loud Family TV. My name is Chen Williams. Have a good day.